Hey there, everybody, and welcome to Work Should Feel Good, the show where your career growth meets your real life. I'm your host, Diana Alt, and today my guest, Steve Jaffe, and I are going to talk about the aftermath of layoffs, particularly the process of grieving the job that you lost, which is completely underrated. Steve is an author, a speaker, and a marketing strategist who helps people navigate the emotional and practical realities of job loss. A one, two, three, four-time layoff survivor, he's seen some shit and come through on the other side. His debut book, The Layoff Journey, From Dismissal to Discovery, Navigating the Stages of Grief After a Job Loss, is not only one of the longest book titles I've ever seen, but it reframes the layoff experience through 7 stages of grief, giving readers a roadmap to process, rebuild, and renew after a layoff. Welcome to the party, Steve. How are
Hey,
you?
thank you. Thank you. It's great to be here. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
I'm so glad we finally connected because I think it was like you're doing your pub tour for this book that,
Yeah.
and one of the members of your team reached out to me, and I have mostly interviewed people I already knew. My podcast is about 9 months old, and I have a lot of people in my network. And at first, I was like, "Who is this person?" And then the second I saw the name of your book, I was like, "Oh, we have to talk. We
Nice.
absolutely have to talk."
Nice.
So
Thank you.
there was one thing that was in some of the materials you sent me that I really want to hit though, because you were part of a freaking marketing tagline campaign thing that is now a core part of American culture,
Yep.
which is
Yep.
what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
Yep. Yep.
So I would just love to hear a little bit about that project and your part of it before
Yeah.
we jump into the rest of this layoff stuff.
Sure. Sure. Yeah. 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 Highlight of my career. Absolutely. One of the things I'm probably most proud of.
You peaked early.
I did. It was fantastic. So I joined the agency as an ad agency in Las Vegas, and
Okay.
I joined that agency right before that campaign launched.
Okay.
And I was there for the first 5 years of its life, and it was a rocket ship like no other. We came out of the gate, and from day one, that thing lit fire, and there was no looking back.
So
It's
they already had it established and were launching it. Were you part of the
no.
creative team?
So I was on the media team, and
Okay.
I was responsible for, like, if you ever saw an ad anywhere, I planned and bought that ad.
Okay.
Billboard, TV, radio, newspaper, magazine. This was all back like traditional media.
Yeah.
And when I joined the agency, we were putting the final touches on the tagline, doing all the research, focus group, testing it, testing the spots. So like the strategist had come in and come up with the tagline. It had been written into the spots, and things were getting tested. And we knew we were taking a pretty big risk. Um, and we thought it was what the city needed to turn the tables on like what had been perceived as like a family destination, and like buffets and 99-cent shrimp cocktail, and it was definitely the precursor to Vegas becoming what it is now.
What
But
year
it
was
was
that launched?
2002.
Wow.
Yeah.
It feels like it's always been.
Yeah, I mean, it captured a zeitgeist. It became
Yeah.
part of like culture, and yeah, I mean, now you see that slogan on everything from "What happens at Grandma's house stays at Grandma's house," and
Exactly.
it's everywhere,
It's
right?
on
So
Etsy on random
yeah, right,
like sweatshirts for
right,
grandma.
right.
Yeah.
But we struck a chord, and like other famous taglines, whether it's like "Where's the beef?" or Nike "Just Do It." Like these are iconic advertising taglines that will live on forever
How'd you get into advertising?
now.
Talk to me about
So my major was journalism with emphasis in advertising, and I
Oh, cool.
wanted to. I really liked like the creative process, and I stumbled into an internship in an agency in San Diego, and it was in the media department. And I found that like media was this really interesting hybrid of creativity, and analytics. It was like left
Mhm.
brain, right brain. And that was
Yeah.
really the way my brain naturally operates, is like creative yet analytical. And I stayed in it for about 10 years. Half of that time was on the What Happens Here campaign. And then I moved over to client side into broader marketing roles. But it was a great place to begin my career and learn, like, really the importance of marketing and messaging and target audience and demographics and research and all of this stuff that I would draw from later in my career. But yeah, that was a really, really fun time.
What a cool time. I feel like, so I was raised by teachers, junior college level. Actually, my mom was like English, all things English. My dad was pre-engineering, so physics and math and chemistry and all that. He didn't do actually he didn't do chemistry, but he did a lot of that stuff. And so we were this academic household. My parents were also both raised on farms. And so like business and marketing was not something we knew about. And when you're like straight A student, mostly straight A student that has teachers for parents, like they don't think very much of business school. So you're like, marketing, what's that? Or they'd be like, you're not majoring in business. That's not for the kid. That's not for you. You're too smart to major in business. And
Right.
now all I do is go find those people that got like an associate's degree in marketing. And I'm like, how do I run my business? What am I, you know, like, when I tell my mom now, like, oh, a lot of my business mentors, especially in this creative small thing that we do as authors or coaches, have GEDs or high school degrees. She's like, what? Like, I don't care what your education is. You teach me how to make some money and I'm into it.
Yeah.
So you went from advertiser to marketer.
Yeah.
Fast forward us to, how did you end up becoming an author and a speaker? Because that's where a lot of your focus is now.
Yeah. So I always had a passion for writing. Like I mentioned, my major in college was journalism,
Mm-hmm.
and I was in journalism in high school too. So I was always doing like writing, and I thought I was a decent writer, and people would tell me they thought I was a pretty good writer. And in the back of my mind, I always had this goal of someday I want to write a book. And I
Mm-hmm.
toyed around with a lot of different ideas, but nothing stuck. And then after my fourth layoff, um, I found that I had learned this set of skills and how to navigate the stages of grief after job loss. And I wanted to communicate that to the people I was laid off with and tell them, listen, everything's going to be okay. Here's the things I've learned after 4 layoffs. And this could help you in your own journey through the grief. And that's when, like, I had this light bulb moment and I thought, oh my gosh, if I
That's
turn this into a book, I could help more than just the people I was laid off with at this one
yeah.
company. I could help so many more people. And then from that moment forward, it was like, this is it. I'm going to write this book. It's going to be about how to get through a layoff. And I never looked back.
Well, I love the principle of it. I'm full disclosure to the people listening. I usually try to read the whole book before I bring an author, I'm bringing an author on and talking to him about it. But I booked like 5 authors within about 6 weeks. I read a lot, but I don't read that much. I did, however, read basically like the first quarter to a third of the book where you outline a lot of the basic stuff. And I can't wait to read the rest of it because it's like less than 150 pages. It's just like practical, actionable.
Yeah.
And I love books like that. I love a well-researched, like, PhD wrote the book, which I have an interview with one of those people later this week. But man, just the thing that feels like you're sitting down and telling your best friend, like, I know you got laid off from your job you've had for 10 years, but this is what you're experiencing. And it's so valuable because you're not jumping directly into go immediately and find a job. So
Right.
you're going through like, let's process this thing. Before we get into like what that stages of grief is, because I think it's fascinating. It's based on Elizabeth Kubler's work from the book on death and dying. I want to get there, but I thought we could swap some more stories about layoffs because I've got 3, you've got 4.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it. So I do remember from the first part of your book, your first one was during the tech wreck, right?
Yeah, yeah, the first dot-com bubble that burst in 2001. Yeah,
What were you
Bay Area.
doing? Were you at that agency, or talk to
I
me?
was at a different agency. I was in San Francisco at the
Okay.
time. I was at a great agency working on a great account, and the writing was on the wall with companies starting to crash. And the client that we had that I worked on um, went bankrupt. A
Mm,
huge company. Their parent company was WorldCom, and
mm,
they lost all their money. And yeah, so ad agencies have this thing where they test the concepts in focus groups, and
yeah.
they'll have a one-way mirror so that in another room you could look into the focus group room and
Right.
observe and listen, right? And I was in that focus group room meeting with a vendor, planning our next campaign, and I could look through the mirror and see what was happening in the conference room. I could see like agency leadership and somebody from HR. I could see people walk in and I could read the expression on their face. I could see like papers getting passed across the conference room table.
Oh my
I
gosh.
could see they were very quick, short meetings. I could see it was very serious. People were not happy, right? And so I'm watching all of this happen while I'm meeting with the vendor, and I'm like, God, this is really weird. What's going on? And there's a knock on the door. It's somebody from HR, and they ask me to join them in the conference room. And I'm like, well, I'm in a meeting right now. And I said, no, this is really important. You need to come to the
That
conference
is
room.
the weirdest decision.
Right.
Like I
So,
understand like ripping the Band-Aid off, but pulling you out of a vendor meeting?
yeah. So now I'm on the other side of the mirror, right? And now the
Yeah.
vendor that I'm meeting with is watching me in the conference room.
Oh
And
my
now I
gosh.
walk in, and now suddenly I realize why it's all somber and what's going on. Because guess what? Everybody's getting laid off, and now I'm one of the
One of
lucky
the
people that gets to
people.
get laid off, right? And so short meeting, right? I get past Cobra, severance. Thank you. It's time to clean out your desk. You have 5 minutes. And meanwhile, this vendor is still there. And
Like, what the
I'm now
heck is going
leaving the
on?
agency. They're in there wondering if I'm going to come back to the meeting. Right. And I'm like, never coming back again. It was
How
like, to
crazy.
say it was traumatic. And then here's the other thing. So ad agencies are like, they have these open plan offices, right? So
Yes.
everybody can see everything. So now, and it's hushed quiet because by this time the rumor had made it around the agency that there's layoffs going on, right? And everybody's wondering, okay, am I going to get called in the conference room? Am I safe? Did my friend just get laid off? So now I have a box. I'm cleaning out my desk. Everybody's watching me, and
Yeah.
I'm kind of like, okay, well, bye guys. I'll see you later. It was embarrassing. It was humiliating. It was painful. It was a no understatement to say it was a traumatic experience.
I got laid off. I'm sure it was. And like that whole doing it in front of everybody
Yeah,
part is so wild. So
right.
my first layoff was, it sounds like just a few months before yours, because I was working, my first job out of college was with an IT consulting firm.
Mhm.
And I was in the Midwest. So a lot of our clients were not like, the crazy unicorn, but they made $0. They made negative zillions of dollars, like a lot of the Bay Area stuff. But consulting always gets hit first because people are going to trim whatever optional projects they have. So I'm a little baby consultant who traveled 4 days a week. But on Fridays, we would go in the office and do our expense reports, or sometimes there would be training or whatever. And what's interesting about that is like I didn't have anything at the office
Mhm.
because I wasn't usually there. So I had like a laptop and my purse and like a notebook.
Mhm.
And they were pulling people in to let us go. We did not get told, get the heck out. We actually were a consulting arm of a much bigger company. So we got told you have 4 weeks.
Mhm.
There are roles open in like some of these other areas of the broader company. You're welcome to apply. Like we'll try to help you with that. But it was all like this stuff that it was like government outsourcing
Mm,
crap. And I'm like,
mhm,
that is not me.
mhm,
So, but I managed to find a job fairly quickly
mhm,
through a gal that I went to college with, took that job. I got laid off in November.
mhm,
So right at the end of the year,
mhm,
was able to start mine in January, and then that company laid off too.
mm.
But I learned a skill set in 6 months at that second company that served me for years afterwards.
Really?
So, yeah, I basically went and learned Siebel, which was a big
Mhm,
CRM tool at the time. It's
mhm.
kinda like Salesforce. No,
Yeah.
Siebel's bye-bye now, but it's like a Salesforce CRM platform kinda thing, and I learned that, a bunch of it, especially around reporting
Hmm.
in that 6 months, and that kept me going for a while because I contracted through a weird period
Yeah.
until I could find a full-time job. So yeah. What else happened? Like, did you get hit a lot during the tech reg? Because a lot of people got in that cycle where it's like everybody was doing last in, first out. So it's like you get laid off and then you get the next job and you're like, great, I have a new job. And then they would have to lay off last in, first out. So then you're out again. Did you
Yeah.
experience that or was your experience different?
Well, it was a little different, but it was no less difficult. So this layoff happened, it was like maybe March, April, right?
Okay.
And then my wife gets laid off. So
Oh
now we're
no.
both laid off. And San Francisco is like layoffs are happening everywhere. And there's U-Hauls and it's like rats leaving the ship. So
Yes.
I thought, well, let's go to LA because LA is less about tech and more about like um, film and TV and like
Mhm.
theatrical releases. I could probably get a job doing media for like a studio. So we moved to LA and then 9/11 happens and the entire thing just
Ugh.
vaporizes like up like every job prospect gone.
Yeah.
Um, and she decided to go back to school, and I ended up being out of work total for about 18 months.
Wow.
And then I landed that job in Vegas on What Happens Here Stays Here.
Got it.
And it
Okay.
was this very strange, like, go from nothing to this like rocket ship. Like in the book, I tell the story about how in that layoff experience, I was like home alone in sweats and I'm watching the Super Bowl. And the very next year, I was at the Super Bowl because of What
Wow.
Happens Here Stays Here. And
Yeah.
that's a very interesting, like you never know what the future holds. You never know what's at the end of your journey.
Yeah, I love and that I think that that openness of attitude, like whether you learned it in retrospect or whether you had it while that was going on is so important because what I see so often, whether we're in a weird job market with a recession or geopolitical nonsense or any of that, or whether it's just good times,
Mhm,
people will decide that they know. And they
mhm,
just the thing that they decide that they know is that it's impossible, everything's terrible, and all of that kind of stuff. So I've been coaching for a long time. Kind of the origin of me being a career coach actually was that almost all the baby consultants, unless they were directly staffed at that time, got laid off in that Q4 2000 layoff that I mentioned earlier. And we didn't know what the hell we were doing. Like our career centers in our colleges didn't teach us any better in
mhm,
1998, 99 what to do than they do now. They're
mhm,
kind of out of date on things. And so we were figuring it out together. And I really quickly realized that, oh my gosh, like I know people that are willing to work for the same money that I am, that have 10 more years of experience. And it's because they have a mortgage and kids. Like their financial situation is more desperate than mine is.
mhm,
So I just started figuring out how do I stand out from somebody with more experience.
mhm.
And that's the very baby beginning of when I was coaching. And then I just helped friends with that for a long time. And then eventually someone said, I'd like you to help me and I'll give you money. I'm like, wait, I can get money for this? What? What? Sounds good. So, what was the most recent layoff?
Most recent layoff, June 2023. I was at a SaaS startup Series A round, and they were going through their first round of layoffs. About 20% of the company got let go.
Yeah.
And this one was over Zoom, and it was like a very short 5-minute Zoom thing. And then, boom, your
You're
laptop
done.
shuts down. Yeah. And that's it. Okay. But that's kind of the story arc in the book, is going from that first layoff where I was just a total wreck, totally traumatized, stages of grief, took a long, long time to get
Oh,
through. And then in that last layoff, now like almost 25 years later, after 4 layoffs, this is my 4th. It's like water off a duck's back. It doesn't really affect me in any way.
yeah. You're like,
And
okay.
that's when I'm like, wait a minute, what's going on here? And I'm like, I learned a set of skills that you wouldn't really wish on anyone. You wouldn't wish somebody to be an expert at getting laid off and figuring out how to emotionally cope with that in a way that, like, it's very healthy and it's productive, and you come out of it feeling almost like a sense of renewal. But that's what I had
Mhm.
learned. I had learned kind of, I guess, to see the silver lining, or to create systems of self-care that would help
Yeah.
me not only get through a layoff, but any difficult or traumatic thing that I was going through. Because I had managed, like, good mental health, good spiritual health, all of these different kind of mind, body, spirit baselines that I didn't have in place in that first layoff.
Yeah.
I didn't, one of the things I didn't understand was the importance of a network and community.
Oh,
So when I moved to LA, I lost all of the relationships in San Francisco, and this was back
yeah.
when,
We were
like,
still buying minutes on our cell phones. Like for
yeah,
people who are like, why would you lose anything?
right,
Especially younger listeners.
right,
We were literally rationing minutes on our cell phones in that period of our life. And we were waiting until 9 o'clock PM to call people, which you don't want to call your friends in San Francisco at 9 o'clock, your
right,
colleague, like
right.
just felt weird.
Right.
So
So now you can get up and move to any city and you still have your network, right?
yes,
In this
if
time,
you decide
moving from
to.
San Francisco to LA was like, might as well move from New York to San Francisco. Like,
Yeah.
you had no social media. You barely maybe had cell phones, maybe not too much, but this was all analog. And even resumes, I think you were still printing out physical copies of a resume. So
Probably at that time. Yeah.
yeah.
I think I was right in the line. Like we were definitely taking printed resumes to all job interviews on that cream colored paper that we spent extra money on at Office Max.
Right, there you go. Yeah, you had to
Um,
had the fancy
like
paper.
we were springing for the fancy paper after we got the resume good. But I do remember somewhere in that phase of my career, I discovered dice.com because I was in
Mm,
tech.
mm,
In that early phase of my career, I ran across Dice, which was a tech job board. It's still around. It kind of looks a little bit differently, but that was the only game in town. This was pre-LinkedIn.
mm,
LinkedIn did
mhm.
not exist when you and I first had our first layoffs.
Right,
So
right.
I feel like the same thing though. So when I had my third layoff was in 2012,
Mhm,
and so the first two were 6 months apart. My third layoff was in 2012. I was working as a product manager for a large tech company, and I was absolutely burned out because
mhm,
for 10 years, I'd never taken more than about 10 days off of work,
mhm,
maybe 2 weeks over Christmas or something. But I had never gotten to rest. And I also had lost my husband and my dad
mm,
while I was working at that company a
mm,
couple of years before. And I just worked through it because I like to work. That is one of my things. But I didn't like the direction the company was going. I was plotting my exit. So I'm sure I was the weirdest layoff
mhm,
conversation they had that day. And it was a very surgical layoff where they got let go of 5 people in my local office. and it was just like a trim, it wasn't a 20% of people. So I have to go into the office with the VP of product and the HR director, and they tell me this, and I look happy and they're confused. And my direct boss was on vacation, and he was pissed because he knew it was coming, but they were going to wait till the week after he got back, and then they changed their mind because they wanted to get the head count off the books by the end of the quarter.
Yeah.
And he would have been back on like April 3rd or something. So they're like, you're out.
Yeah.
And I was ready. I was in the same place because I've like, I've done this. I'd also changed jobs a couple more times in between. And I'm like, I learned so early on that job security is the biggest fiction that people chase. Like it is like leprechauns are about as real as job security.
Right.
So,
yeah.
So when you think about we've touched on it. The main purpose of your book is the 7 stages of grief, which is, like we said earlier, it's based off of Elizabeth Kubler-Ross work. What was the light bulb that made you go to the 5 stages of grief that you turned into 7 for layoffs? Like, how did that light bulb come to you?
Well, as I was thinking about my own journey over the course of these 4 layoffs and my feelings and emotions that I saw through line. So each layoff, there was some element of denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and then ultimately acceptance, right? And the more I researched her practice and approach and her understanding, it's like a common kind of, for the human condition, any traumatic life experience, a life event, whether it's the divorce, death of a loved one, and certainly a layoff, they follow this way of processing these emotions. So they're sort of transcendent. And as I researched it further, I learned that in time, additional researchers have come in and added on these additional stages of reconstruction and renewal. And
I wondered where those came from. I didn't know if that was a Steve thing or if there was additional research. So
yeah. So now they're and sometimes they get worded or rewritten differently, but and I liked the arc of, the early stages are very dark, denial, anger, bargaining, depression. Those are difficult, where you're doing a lot of heavy lifting every day to get up and manage and keep yourself in good headspace. I liked really doubling down on the light at the end of the tunnel, because that's where the growth happens and that's where the discovery happens. So not just thinking about accepting this, because it's like, yeah, I accept I've been laid off, but now what do I do with that? And it leaves it kind of open-ended if you don't close with the reconstruction and then ultimately the renewal. And that for me is where the learning, the growth, the productivity happen, where you discover something in yourself, whether it's resilience or grit or a redefinition of your values and how they align with your professional career. Or maybe you learn you really love what you've been doing and you want to continue to do it. Whatever that answer is for you, it only comes at the end of that ultimate renewal. And so
it's also cyclical too, or maybe not cyclical, but like, it's not clean steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Like you can go back and forth on this.
Absolutely.
I see a lot. I do in my work, I work with, executives on kind of like performance management and growth and kind of career development with other people. And I do a lot of work on job search, which has been even more work the last 2 years, of course. But watching people, they can intellectually accept the layoff. They can intellectually accept that the average job search is around 8 months for white collar professionals that I serve. But
Mhm.
man, when they are in it and they are getting the rejection or they're the second place again at the final interview, it just takes you right back to everything else that you were processing. So,
Right,
um,
right, right. Two things I want to just drill into. You're absolutely right. Is the stages aren't linear. You pass through them, um, sometimes all at once, sometimes not at all on any given day, and they're really unique to your life experience. So you may feel some more than others based on
mhm,
your background. Um, but one of the things that I like about talking about the stages of grief after a layoff is that. Um, if you do this well and productively, you then can move on to that job search aspect without carrying this baggage, because your job search is going to be met with a lot of disappointment and a lot of rejection. And if you're carrying this grief and then you're going to be met with the grief of the job hunt, it's just going to have a compounding effect. And
it's
talk about
paralyzing.
yeah, I mean, talk about depression. You've got a lot to be depressed about after you've been laid off, and now you can't find another job because you've been rejected for the 100th time.
Right.
So it's really important to kind of do this step and do this work before you get to your resume and you go on that interview. Because what's great about this is in that rediscovery phase where you're getting back in touch with, what do I want to do? Why do I want to do it? What's valuable to me? What's important? What fulfills me? What brings me joy? You're able to understand what career path you should be on. And with that realization, then when a hiring manager says to you, "Why do you want this job?" You're able to give a really genuine, sincere answer that I
Yes.
love this work and I want to continue to do this work. Or, you know what I've learned in this layoff experience, I would really like to pivot into a new area. This
Yeah.
area really matches where my passions and joy lives, and I really would like to move into this area. But you
I
do
wanna
it from
take
a
the opportunity. That
right.
kind of language matters to people because, you know, I so many people don't understand that checking off all checking the boxes on the job description is the start of landing the job.
Mhm.
It is not the end of landing the job. When you do that, especially in a market where there's a lot of competition, there are 100 other people that check the same damn box as you are. So you have to check them harder or highlight them or something,
Mhm.
make it
Mhm.
really freaking obvious. And then when you walk in the door, people want someone that is qualified, can get the results that's needed, is good to work with, and freaking wants to be there because they
Right.
don't want to turn around 6 months later and do it all again.
Right.
So
Right.
here's a question for you though, because um, an insanely large percentage of Americans, I've seen different numbers, 40% is that range is one of the most common ones, are like a they're like one or two paychecks away from the street. They
Mhm.
can't handle a $500 emergency, that kind of
Mhm.
thing.
Mhm.
And some of those people are look like they're loaded. So
Mhm.
it's not all just the people that, live in the modest house in the duplex, driving the beater car, like people at every pay grade
Mhm.
can be in that bucket.
Mhm.
So my question for you is sometimes you have to get after it.
Yep.
You have to get after it.
Yep.
And the processing of grief, especially for people that have been in a job for a long time, maybe they're angry. A whole topic we're going to get into is like, I worked my ass off. Why did I make the layoff list? They're in that space. What is your guidance to those people when they have to get after the job search for various reasons,
Mhm.
but they still need to process? They can't wait 4 or 6 weeks to try to get, through a lot of the steps.
Right. 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 Is really, really important. And a healthy outlet means a lot of different things. It means talking about this with people, finding a
Mhm.
community, finding those resources, the friends, mentors, family. Talking about what you're going through is important. And you can do that while you're still on the job hunt.
Mhm.
Um, like a really healthy self-care routine. So good exercise, getting outside, some type of physical movement is really great to fight off depression and to clear your mind. So there's a lot of really healthy chemicals that get released in your body when you exercise: dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin. Those will help you fight depression in a really natural way. Um, and you'd be amazed at how clear your thinking can become after some exercise. And that will help you put some things into perspective. Um, Important sleep. Sleep
Oh
is
my God.
really, really important. Getting plenty of rest is a great way to give yourself some self-care. Um, Good diet, healthy food. Limiting alcohol intake is really important. Um, I would also recommend people create a gratitude practice. So much has been taken from you during the layoff. So your job, your title, your paycheck, your health insurance. Um, these are things that yes, they've been taken, but you want to try and focus on what you still have that's positive.
Yeah.
Um, the one that grows is the one that you feed. And if you spend a few minutes each day thinking about what you have that you're grateful for, you'd be amazed at how you can develop some resiliency and a positive mindset that's going to help you get through this.
Yeah.
So,
And I think I love everything you're saying, especially things about trying to maintain your physical health, because that is the thing that a lot of people put to the bottom of the list before they got laid off anyway. If they know their company is struggling, they are that person that just tried like hell to make it work, and maybe we're compromising on their health. So
mhm,
some things that I tell people are: number one, let yourself be pissed,
mhm,
but give it a time cap,
mhm,
especially when the anger phase comes back at you. Like, if you are just you thought you were moving through, and you're giving me the vocabulary with the grief stages. I didn't say it exactly this way, but now maybe I will. But if you are kind of progressing and then all of a sudden something slaps you and you're back at pissed off, like, let yourself be pissed off for the afternoon or
mhm,
for 10 minutes or something, and then say, okay, what is now? It's very, very easy to roll over into toxic positivity
mhm,
with this
mhm,
as well. Like,
mhm.
yes, all this self-care is important. Yes, having a positive mindset is important, but I live in the real world where that doesn't always work. I also tell people, don't cancel the gym.
Yeah,
And if
absolutely.
you have a vacation coming up, don't cancel the vacation. You might
Absolutely.
downgrade it. Like, if you
Yeah.
were going to go deluxe first class, like, maybe you're going to see if you can, stay at a place that's less expensive, or go for 5 days instead of 8 or whatever.
Mhm.
But don't deprive yourself of making memories with family
Yeah.
or friends because you lost your job.
Yeah.
Um, Dignity is the biggest thing I think people lose. What do you think? There's like that
Dignity.
shame
I think,
factor.
yeah, I think dignity goes hand in hand with shame and embarrassment. And
Yes.
that's, I think, the number one emotion people feel after they've been laid off is the shame and embarrassment. And what I hope people gain from my book and from hearing me speak is that um, you can let go of the shame and embarrassment. This is a no fault termination. Layoffs
Yeah.
are you've done nothing wrong, right? And now if you're fired, that's a different situation. But at a layoff, you're in the wrong place at the wrong time. The company is doing a budget exercise, and you were a name on a spreadsheet that they needed to free up budget because they couldn't find another way to generate revenue to the bottom line. It's
Yeah.
simple as that.
Or
And
they're preparing for sale or
yeah,
something like that. Yeah.
I've seen employee of the year in January get laid off in June. You
Yeah.
can work as hard as you can, all hours of the day, and be a high performer and still get laid off.
So let's
So,
talk about that,
yeah.
because that is one of those things. I watch people all the time that, I need to get a new job. I hate, I don't like this job, or it's all consuming, or whatever those reasons are that someone might want to leave, but they are taking no action
Mhm.
because they're trying to bail water out of the leaky rowboat. And then they get slapped with the layoff. Um, do you have insight what's your perspective on why those people are sometimes ending up laid off? Because that's the biggest question they ask. Have you, like, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, everybody's situation is unique, but if you hate a job, right?
It shows.
And yeah, I mean, you could be manifesting that. You could be manifesting, but more often than not, layoffs are somewhat faceless and nameless. So somebody is making a decision and they don't necessarily know you or work with you every day. They see salary and maybe some tenure and title, but in layoffs at large scale, like let's say Facebook laid off 14,000 people. That's just a pure budget exercise.
Mhm.
There's nothing more than that.
And that is we're cutting entire departments because we've
Yeah,
decided not to invest in that anymore. So you
yeah,
could be the top person in that whole department of 1,000 people, and they're
yeah,
like pulling the
yeah,
plug. You're
yeah.
gone. So
And I've seen layoffs where a new president comes in and the president just wants to clean house. A new CMO comes in, and the new CMO gets rid of everybody and replaces them with people that they used to work with at another company. Mergers, you merge with another company, people at the old company are gone. It There's so many reasons behind a layoff, none of which have to do with the individual employee and how they showed up. Um,
mhm.
and I'll say, but I do think that, you know, the universe hears what you're putting out. And if you're unhappy and you hate your job and you hate what you're doing and you're putting that out there, sometimes what you get back is a get out of jail free card. If you
Yeah.
get laid off from a company you hate, that's a get out of jail free card that allows you to
I call
reset.
it with like one of the principles I believe in is like if you don't listen to the universe or God or whatever
Mhm.
is outside you, if you don't listen to the whispers, eventually they yell at you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what my third layoff was really interesting because I wanted that, like I wanted to leave there, but I also had anger because there was a healthy dose of gaslighting along with this. I was
Mhm.
part of a smaller company that got bought by a large tech company. And so the decisions were made at kind of the headquarters type level. And what was so interesting is number one, when they laid me off, they were told to tell me that the reason I was being laid off is because I came into the company as a business analyst because the title of product manager didn't really exist. But then when we were bought, now it's product management and I wasn't qualified for that. And meanwhile, my boss had been like, "You're one of the most talented product managers that I've ever had." I found out later that he fought for me up into the point where his own job was threatened because he wanted to keep me. And
Mhm.
I'm like, okay, that's good. The people that actually know my skills are kind of on
Mhm.
my side, but I can't control assholes. The real deal is that I was friends with the CEO and his wife, who was an exec vice president, and they were 80% of the people that they cut out of our business unit's layoffs were people that were perceived as being loyal to the
Yeah.
old regime.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, okay, I'm not going to not be friends with somebody to not
Yeah.
get laid off. It was 2012. Like
Yeah.
we had a good market. I was
Yeah.
turning down offers every week, but
Yeah.
that did catch me
Mhm.
sometimes where I was just
Mhm.
like, those MFers, like, who are you to tell me I'm not a good product manager? I know I'm a good product manager.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I can relate. I was at a company working for COO. It was my direct line to the COO, and he was putting me on a path to be CMO.
oh wow,
And
nice.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But then he left, and the person that I ended up reporting to had a big beef with that guy, and as a result, had a big beef with anybody that reported into him and showed alliance to him, and never trusted me, and redlined me after that. And I went from in line for CMO on a long runway, right?
Yeah,
Not anytime soon, but I went from that to being redlined within 2 or 3 months after the COO left because
that's
of my
wild.
alliance, my perceived alliance.
I met with someone. I met with a potential client a few weeks ago who had been laid off. And when I dug into the story, I found out that they basically had a leadership change, and he ended up reporting to a guy that had been a peer. And they kind of like, he thought they respected each other, but they were at loggerheads. And so he actually went to that guy, to his new boss that was previously a peer, and said, I think you should fire me because we clearly do not align on values, and you're the one that's in the chair. So like, he basically crafted a one-man layoff for himself out of that, which went pretty well for him. I think he was still angry because why did that guy get promoted? Like, the company has struggled under it. So I have a couple more questions before I go into my kind of questions I ask everybody.
Okay.
One of them that you had suggested as a cool topic to talk about on your little form you sent me was how can leaders and companies handle layoffs more humanely? And I'm really interested in your thoughts when we're dealing with those layoffs at scale. Because like there's no way to call 14,000 people individually in a room.
Right.
You know, what are your thoughts on that?
Here's my answer. And this answer can scale. So don't think about it as it being only applicable to small companies. It's more in its application and philosophical approach.
Okay.
If companies laid off people the way they would want their son or daughter to get laid off, it would probably add a lot more humanity, right? So if your son or daughter came home one day and said, I got laid off today, and you said, God, I'm really sorry to hear that, and then they told you their layoff experience, how would you want that to happen? Would you want there to be a fair severance agreement? Would you want there to be maybe fair health care during the time of separation? How is it communicated? Are they communicated by email? Are they communicated by some sort of a Zoom meeting in a town hall? Or do they just shut off their computer, which happens to a lot of people? Some people will have their credit card turned off on a business trip and they won't even know about
I've known multiple people that happened to, and that is just embarrassing.
Right.
Like, I'm stranded in Poughkeepsie.
Yeah.
What are we doing? I think that's a really good lens, because if you can think about that lens, like whenever some of these large companies that have had the 10,000+ layoffs, Facebook is one of the top ones, because they had one, they've had a couple of those over the last 4 years. And when I look at them, you know, it's all over the news. Oh, they're terrible. They sent it via email, or they did it on Zoom, or whatever they did. And when I dug into it, I found out that actually they were one of the most humane layoffs that anybody has ever done in large tech, because they had extremely generous severance. They covered medical benefits for a long time. And they also explained, here's how you're going to get notified. So people knew what was what.
Right.
But there were a lot of people like, well, every single person should get an individual meeting. And what I found so interesting in a lot of those discussions online is how many people are like, I don't need to talk to anybody. Just tell me what's up. So I think if I was designing for a large one, I might have a cadre of people that's like, if you want to speak to somebody, here's your path. We're going to do it this way, but if you want to talk to somebody about it, here's your path.
So many people, they'll learn about it by watching the news, you know, because they'll talk about the Wall Street.
I was off that day. I didn't log into my email, and now it's on. Now, like, Nora O'Donnell is telling me about it.
Right. So at the heart of it is some humanity, some compassion, some empathy. You know, if a loved one or a friend got laid off, how would you want to do that? And that would be your guiding light.
I do some small business consulting as part of my work too, because like the executive coaching side, when you're working with people that have a 10-man office, like you're in their business too. And I've helped some people with small businesses design severance that had never, you know, they hire once every 3 years, like people stay, and then if they've got to let somebody go, they don't know how to do it. They have no
Yeah.
idea how to do it. So,
Yeah.
and then the last thing I wanted to talk about before my other questions is, what is the thing about a layoff that is really hard that people do not expect? I think that so many people are used to thinking about, I don't have anything to do the next day.
Mhm.
A little bit. They're
Mhm.
definitely thinking about the money, but what are some of the top things that just people get blindsided by and don't expect?
I've done a poll on this, and
Ooh,
I've
love
asked a
it.
lot of people, and it's, one of the things people talk a lot about is the relationships. Those people that you work with, that you're in the foxhole with, that you probably spend more time with than your family. You don't get to say a proper goodbye to them.
Mhm.
You also don't get any kind of recognition or appreciation for your work. So if you leave on your own accord, right? A lot of times people will do some sort of a going
Oh,
away
take you to
party,
lunch, do
right?
the
They'll take you to
thing.
lunch, say, "Oh, Diana, you were so wonderful. We appreciate all your hard work," right? You get laid off. You don't get that.
Yeah.
It's a just a hard stop. And there's no closure, right?
Yeah.
So the relationships and the way those relationships end, that's really, really difficult. Um, the the routine is really difficult. Yeah, you have nothing
Yes.
that's going to fill your day now. All those projects that you were incredibly either passionate about, or you were working long hours and long days trying to push forward, those are all gone. You have to let go of those,
They're
right?
gone for you.
They're
Like,
gone
what's
for
really
you.
hard is when you watch somebody else release it,
Yep.
especially if it's somebody public, but that's a really good point. Like, what are you doing? The other thing that comes to mind for me is I'm thinking about how in the pandemic, when we all kind of went home and tons of people were furloughed or laid off or whatever, there was this thing where, all everybody has a project. If I had time, if I had 3 months to myself, if I could take a 30-day vacation altogether, I would do X. And then most of us didn't do those things.
Yeah,
And it's
right.
because we were actually processing grief, which is
Yeah,
worse, but
yeah,
it's work. And we were doing it collectively.
yeah.
But like, no, I did not learn how to make sourdough in 2020. I feel like I can YouTube that and figure it out, but we did not do that. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for that. I'm gonna put Steve's website back up. Um, Basically, buy the book. It's a good book. It's gonna be a quick read. You can access it from his website, and you can also look it up on Amazon. The book name is 10 Miles Long. The beginning of it is the Layoff Journey. If you just put the Layoff Journey and Steve Jaffe into Amazon, you're going to find it. My lightning round that sometimes is not a lightning round because we sometimes get into it is the first question is, what is the worst piece of career advice you have ever received?
Ooh. Um, there's this new trend right now where people are saying, like, it's okay to kind of like badmouth your employer online or on Glassdoor or whatever. Like I disagree. Don't, like, keep that to yourself. Don't go there. Like,
I
it's
think
not
it's
going to serve you
interesting.
well.
I think when there is, it's interesting. Like, when do you name names? The question
Yeah,
of, when am I naming names?
yeah,
And I think the big thing a person has to ask themselves is, what do I hope to achieve by this?
uh,
Like, if you hope to call attention that's going to change behavior, that's different than I just need to bitch about it.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
bitch to your
Keep all that
therapist.
stuff offline.
Yeah.
That's the recommendation. The
Yeah.
people are getting a little loose with, like, how they want to vent.
Well, like, one of the ones that um the TikTok career stuff is very
Yeah,
interesting.
right, right.
And there's people that are like recording with their
Yeah,
phone
right.
meetings with their boss where their boss is a jackass. And they're putting it on TikTok and people love it. So they have 53,000 followers and
Yeah,
then they
right.
wonder why they get fired.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Crazy.
yeah.
What is a personal habit that has helped you to be successful?
Honestly, all that self-care stuff really,
Yeah.
really gave me a much better baseline to manage all of this grief, especially like depression. That was one
Mhm.
thing that got triggered for me. I didn't really realize I had a propensity for depression until after that first layoff. And I
Yeah.
needed to build a self-care routine to get through the day. And those things now have become non-negotiables. Yeah, that self-care routine is that keeps me going. Without that, I wouldn't have what I needed to
And
get through it.
you're not talking bubble baths either. You're talking like
No.
eat a vegetable, go to bed on time.
Yeah, I mean, the
I love
things that
that.
your body needs to recharge and recoup, the resources necessary for like heavy grief and like traumatic things, like a death of a loved one. This last year, my father died, my sister died, my grandmother-in-law died. I live in a place in Altadena where there were fires that burned down the neighborhood.
Oh
Like,
no.
I was able to get through that because of coping strategies that I've developed.
Yeah. But it also reminds me, like, this is a little bit of a rabbit trail, but it reminds me of something really important. That's the difference between when I got laid off at 26 or however old I was, and whenever it was 12 years later. And that is, at the time that I got my first and second layoffs, losing my job was probably the worst thing that had directly happened to me. And by the time I hit 10 years later, there's a bunch of shit that was worse than that has happened to me, which gives some perspective. So
Yeah.
the last one I have is what's something you've changed your mind about recently? Doesn't have to be like last week, but like,
I'll tell you what. So we're recording this, actually day of November elections.
Yeah,
And
November 4th, 2025, we're recording.
Yeah. I'm gonna say that it's okay to gerrymander. I've changed my mind on gerrymandering. State of California has to gerrymander, and I voted yes on Prop 50. So
Yeah,
that's going to date this episode. We can cut it if you want.
I'm in Kansas, and like we don't have anything big, that's meeting the news, and so I'm like paying attention to California with that, and then the New York City mayor. Like,
yeah, that's big.
I just want to watch Dancing with the Stars and find out who's there and what we're doing. So, and Kansas is not too bad, but I'm from Missouri, and my mom and brother still live in Missouri, and they did a number on Missouri. So,
all right, I'll give you a lighthearted one.
Yeah, give me a
okay. Here's a lighthearted one. You know what I'm rethinking? I'm rethinking my opinion of Domino's Pizza. It's actually not that bad.
Did it get better?
I think it did. If you get the New York crust Domino's, it's not too bad. I'm kind of on board with it.
I like thin pizza. So
this is pretty good. Their sauce, the whole thing, I'm telling you. But I'm of the opinion that there's no such thing as bad pizza. So you could throw anything at me that resembles a pizza, and I'm gonna like it.
I don't know that I would like it, but I'll eat it. There's not very much pizza I won't eat. But also, you kind of have to know what you're getting. Like, if you have your mind set on like the gourmet fancy pizza place, and then someone hands you Domino's, that hits different than if I'm just getting my bargain New York pizza tonight. So
Yep.
Well, I so appreciate you coming on the show today. It's been a great pleasure to talk to you. I think it's so important for people to think about these factors, these kind of emotional processing factors for their layoff if they want to successfully move forward. So can't wait to finish reading your book and passing it along to some of my clients.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.